It is the Corner Booth pregame show here on KORN News Radio. I'm Travis Kriens as we start to wind down the regular season. High school football just a couple weeks left. Marcus Traxler and Landon Dierks join us here from the Mitchell Republic. Again, we get ready for Mitchell football tonight. An hour earlier than usual. It's a 6 o'clock kickoff. We appreciate that over in Brandon. Tonight, we will preview here coming up shortly Mitchell at now number 1 Brandon Valley AAA game for the Colonels. But before we preview, we recap Mitchell's fairly close game last week at Aberdeen Central. You heard it right here on KORN. Aberdeen Central with one offensive touchdown, but they scored three other ways. 28-13 Aberdeen Central with that win. Golden Eagles have now won 2 in a row, and that seemed to be the last great chance Mitchell had to win a game this season with Brandon Valley, Huron, and Yankton on the schedule for these final 3 weeks. And you look at the box score, Marcus, as we like to do, and if there was somebody that had the ability to come back in time to tell us what was going to happen 24 hours before it happened, they would have said Aberdeen's offense scores 7 points. Aberdeen's offense got 6 first downs. They had under 200 yards of offense. They rushed for 53 yards last Friday. Mitchell combining their 3rd and 4th downs. Mitchell was 10 of 19 on those conversions, while Aberdeen was 3 of 9. Everything, when you look at the box score, went Mitchell's way. They had the ball for 32 minutes compared to just 15 for Aberdeen, but special teams let Mitchell down. They gave up a kickoff return for a touchdown in that first quarter. They had a blocked punt for a score from around 35 yards out. All of this happening in the first quarter. So in a lot of ways, and you start all the Mitchell discussions with not including the Douglas game week 1, this was the best the defense has looked and played all season long, but something that hasn't happened all year happened, and that was really multiple miscues on special teams. Yeah,
you mentioned the box score and how if I would have told you that ahead of the game, you'd say
winners.
But this is Mitchell, and unfortunately this season, those things you would presume about what they can do offensively, they ran 70 plays. They outgained them almost 2-1, not quite, but they ran 70 plays for 297 yards. Aberdeen ran 31 plays for 181. The fact that Mitchell ran for almost 200 yards and it was kind of beaten decisively is just it's disheartening. I think there's not a lot that can be said for it. I feel bad because the special teams I feel like has been decent enough this season, and they had a couple breakdowns where they just didn't stay in their lanes on the kickoff, weren't able to break down and tackle Carson Borge, and then on the block punt, nobody accounted for the guy in the end. And I think Pat Larson told you they were planning on the attack coming from, or the rush coming from the left. One guy came free on the right. Nobody was there to get him. And then Mitchell, unfortunately, they just cannot finish the half in an effective way. And so the interception was a backbreaker as well. And I agree. I don't think they played that bad overall, but just a couple big plays. And unfortunately, it seems like everybody that plays Mitchell, they have these big plays and they score. Mitchell will have a big play or two, and it doesn't end in the end zone, and then they just have a hard time finishing the drives the way they need to.
Yeah, one of the themes has been the lack of the big play for Mitchell this year. They can't get 40, 50, 60 yards at a time, but it seems like the other team, they've got one of those plays, and that's the difference. The 3 touchdowns that Aberdeen had was a nearly 60-yard pass, and then a 90, 95-yard punt return, or a kickoff return, and then a punt block that may happen once a year. So it's, Mitchell dominates time of possession 2-1, but they, again, can't finish drives, and they don't have that ability to break off a big run. They're just not built, I guess, Landon. They're not built that way. They've got Kendon Skinner, who's fast, but obviously he's on the edge, and they've got all these linebackers who are playing halfback and fullback this year.
Yeah, it's kind of pick your poison in that regard, that they probably wouldn't. I believe that they don't think they would, and I also tend to agree with them that they wouldn't be moving the ball quite as effectively if all they were doing was giving the ball to, lighter, more scat back type of guys. So they kind of have to give the ball to these more power backs. But then, like you said, you trade that, between the tackles style of running with some power for the breakaway speed. And I mean, their leading rusher for the year is the fullback, Logan Bessler, who, I mean, he plays a traditional fullback role. He lines up 3 yards behind the quarterback, in a 3-point stance 90% of plays at least. So, I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, we've talked about it all year. Mitchell isn't really struggling to move the ball. It's the finishing drives and the other 2 phases that are coming up short.
And this was really a game where if Mitchell plays the way they play, this is kind of how I think they envision it, where they keep the ball for 32 minutes and they run the heck out of it, and they have these long drives, and they limit the Aberdeen offense with some 3-and-outs, some 4-and-outs. But again, it came down to the special team scores. And at the beginning of the game, I was stunned when Aberdeen went for it. It was like a 4th and 2 inside their own 40. They're at the 39-yard line, and they're going into the south wind at 30 miles per hour. And first drive, opening couple minutes, they go for it. And I thought for sure this is going to be try and draw Mitchell off sides. They're going to try and punt into this wind. But they went for it, and they pitched it out right, and Mitchell had them for a loss of 3. And that set up Mitchell's first touchdown. It was a short 35-yard drive, and Mitchell was able to take advantage of that turnover on downs. But I was just stunned that Aberdeen would even consider going for it inside your own 40 on that first drive of the game.
Yeah, it's 0-0. There was so much game to be played, and I think what ended up happening proved that. There were so many other things that happened during the game that I think if you're Aberdeen, you're like, well, we gave Mitchell a touchdown right off the bat. Even for a team that struggles to move the ball, Mitchell could handle that. And I think it was a 7-play drive. It was a nice mix of plays that Mitchell was able to put together, and they punched into the end zone. The depressing part is the kickoff return that just let them get right back into the lead at that point because it was 7-6. So, and then Mitchell's not playing with an advantage anymore, and that was really the case for the rest of the day. So, you mentioned about the explosiveness of the offense. I mean, I think for a fullback, I think what Bessler has done up the middle has been very solid. It's been a very important part of the offense. Caden Allen is kind of that inside the tackles runner as well. They had a decent amount of success with that. Hazing filled in at quarterback. He ran the ball just fine. So they were able to be a little bit diversified with their rushing attack, but they don't have a running play over 45 yards this season. And they've got one play over 50 yards this season. That was a pass that they had. So I just, at some point you got to break off a 70-yard touchdown, in some way, and they just don't have that right now.
Thank you for alerting me who the quarterback was last week.
I had to tell you.
Jackson Hartman did not start. I'm looking at the field there, and we're a ways away there at the top of the bleachers in Aberdeen. And I looked back, and Brady Hazing, the sophomore, gets to start. He's 18. Jackson Hartman hurt his finger. He, again, not expected to start this week again versus Brandon Valley. Hurt his finger Thursday of last week in practice, did not play on Friday. That was a game time decision. It was like 20, 30 minutes before game and warm-ups. He said, I don't think I'm going to be able to play or hold on to the football or throw the football. So that first drive, I'm looking, it's Jackson Hartman out there, quarterback sneak. It's like, no, that was Brady Hazing the whole time, and he's a sophomore. He went 8 of 20 throwing the ball, threw 2 interceptions, 108 yards, found Logan Bessler for a 36-yard screen. Colton Smith, he had 1 catch for 29 yards. That was down the field. And then Hazing does lead Mitchell in rushing, 17 carries for 71 yards, and that quarterback sneak for a touchdown. And he's only a sophomore, looking forward to this, and he'll start versus Brandon Valley this week. He adds another dimension to the offense to where he can run with the 71 yards, and he can pass the ball. The Colonels just haven't had that ability to pass this year, and he's shown, even as a sophomore, on a windy night, he can throw the ball 30, 35 yards down the field to Colton Smith, have him make a play on one-on-one coverage, and give Colton just a chance to make a play. So when we're talking about being explosive, that adds another element. Obviously a tough end here, and we'll see if Jackson Hartman maybe comes back in these final 2 weeks. But yeah, for Brady Hazing being a sophomore, thought he played very well. And the Mitchell offense, it gives them another option. 20 passes on the day is a season high.
Well, he flashed this ability. He's coming at the end of several of these games Brady Hazing has. And
you're wondering, okay, you're against the backups. How does that? But you're against,
Well, he's shown a willingness to try to throw the ball down the field. And, for him to get his shot and continue to have that confidence against the first string defense of what we talked about last week was what has been a very quality defense for Aberdeen Central, despite their shortcomings on offense. Kudos to him for going out and making a whole bunch of plays in his first career start.
I think Jackson Hartman is a very suitable quarterback for this offense when you consider how much option they're running. Unfortunately, in that game on Friday, they did an option pitch. I was listening to you more than I was watching the game. Got fumbled. Aberdeen fell on it. It's one of those things where maybe it would be better executed with the guy who's run the option so well this year. I don't know. But when you run the ball as much as they do, it makes a lot of sense for Hartman to be the person. But they have been hampered a lot when they try to throw the football this season because they don't have the connection. They don't have the passer and they don't have the receivers more often than not. And it's just so the fact that Hazing was able to come in and provide a different element, I like that. It's going to be very difficult against Brandon Valley. We know that. And so what does that mean for the play calling? I guess Mitchell's going to have to figure that out because they're going to be outmanned in a big way. But do you throw the ball a lot? This is kind of like what they had a couple years against Jefferson where it seemed like it didn't matter what they did. It was hard to move the football. You don't want to just throw the ball up for grabs because Brandon Valley is going to win a lot of those battles. But at the same time, I think running the football is going to be difficult as well. So your chance for big plays is probably going to be, as you were talking about, let's find Colton Smith. Let's find Luke LeBrun if we can and see if we can't move the ball a little bit.
Yeah, Brady Hazing, only a sophomore, and the Colonel spread it out a couple times, shotgun, empty backfield, 4 wide, and they called a quarterback draw, quarterback power, whatever you want to call it, and that was very successful. He broke off a couple of 10, 12-yard runs. So, that really hasn't been a play that I've seen Mitchell run, where the quarterback's in the shotgun all by himself, and the play is for him to run it straight up the middle, and he picked up a couple first downs.
Yeah, part of it is you have to have the receivers that the other team respects, that they're going to throw the ball in that situation, because Mitchell, with all due respect, just their 5 linemen are going to have a hard time winning those battles all the time up front. So to block, to open up the holes in that quarterback draw, or you need the defense to be crazy aggressive and overrun their lanes and let Hazing slip out of there. So, but it's good to see the playbook expand a little bit based on the personnel. I agree with you.
Mitchell football tonight coming up against Brandon Valley, and it does appear, based on the starters that we've received, that they're going to play a lot of their backups right off the bat. They're not going to start their quarterback, Briggs Knutson, the senior. They're going to start Will Van Loer at quarterback. He's a 6'2 junior at 180. He's 4 of 12 on the season.
Knutson was out last week.
Was he out as well?
That's right.
He's hurt.
He did not play last week. Yep.
So and then the running back
also got hurt.
So this is a chance to where this probably comes at a good week. You can use this as a bye week. If this was a normal week, who knows if they play, the extent of their injuries, but they're not going to have their starting quarterback or running back.
I believe the rest of those look like the halfway normal starters to me, but yeah.
So at least
they got dinged up in a big way against Lincoln.
At least in that aspect, normal week, who knows if they play, but this, of course, not a normal week. So any chance that Mitchell has to keep this close here past the first quarter, you're playing a backup quarterback and you're not playing a running back who literally has 20 touchdowns on the season.
Yeah, they're going to need their defense to give them a shot in this game. And that's going to be really difficult because Brandon Valley's got so many skilled players. And then even then, in that case, we're talking about the defense needs to score probably because the offense is going to have a hard time moving the football. It's interesting, Brandon Valley coming off that big win last week against Lincoln. I've compared these games to the FBS, FCS games. So is there a little bit of a sleepiness for Brandon Valley playing Mitchell? I'm guessing there might be, but we'll see exactly how this goes. And I think Mitchell should play loose. They should play with nothing to lose because there is nothing to lose at this point. See if you can't go in there and give Brandon Valley a little bit of a scare for a while.
It'll be interesting to see how well Mitchell can move the ball with these 10, 12, 15 play drives. That seems like Mitchell has at least one of those every game. Can you put one of those together in the first half? How effective are you against the best team in the state or maybe the second best team in the state?
Well, I would love to know what the philosophy is from the teams that play Mitchell, because I feel like a lot of them are probably saying, let them drive. Let them, if they get some first downs, it's not that big of a deal because the drive will peter out at some point. And I'm sure that's frustrating for Mitchell, but it's been true through the first 6 games of the season. So the converse of that is I hope Mitchell is able to finish some drives in the last 3 weeks of the season.
It is the Corner Booth pregame show. Again, it's brought to you this season by Jimmy John's of Mitchell, James Valley Landscape Solutions, and also Marlin's Family Restaurants. Sticking with 11 AA, because I think that's where most of the news and action happened
I think we need to talk about it, Travis.
We need to talk about it.
Because I have the transcript of what was said last week, Travis, and I want to confront you with it, quite honestly.
This is a coup.
This is where we're taking the podcast. If Sturgis beats Yankton, then how about that? That's what Landon Dierks said.
That ain't going to happen.
And you said, that ain't going to happen. And it happened.
It happened. 27-21. The game was in Sturgis, correct? Sturgis wins that one 27-21. Kept it close throughout, and you're kind of keeping track of this game. So Sturgis at 5 upsets number 1 Yankton. And Yankton and some other folk still has my first place vote. Yankton at number 1, so we can talk about that. I knew Huron would be at 1. I thought, I don't know who else voted Yankton 1 besides me, probably somebody in Yankton.
What is the rationale for leaving Yankton at number 1?
Yes.
They beat Huron and Pierre.
They just lost to Sturgis.
Games don't matter.
And Huron beat Sturgis, and Huron beat Pierre.
And
Huron played Yankton cletser than anybody.
No.
Not anybody, I shouldn't say, but they played them plenty fine in the first or second week of the season.
I look at, let's look at the poll here. Huron's at 1. They received 19 of the 21 first place votes.
As they should have.
So Huron got up 1. T, I think probably the biggest problem I have with the poll is T at 2. That's really bad. Sturgis goes up to 3. Yankton falls down to number 4. They received 2 first place votes. One of them was mine. Then our peer governors drop 2 spots despite almost beating O'Gorman, which I think is another problem. But as far as what you both had Huron at number 1.
I had Huron 1, Sturgis 2, Yankton 3, Pierre 4, and T 5.
I still have Yankton at 1. I look at the poll every week, and I base it on...
Clearly not the games that were just played.
I think the problem with the poll is that it's too week to week. We've talked about it, Marcus, of nobody pays attention to what happened.
See, I'm not using the poll to predict who's going to win the state championship. I go on merit, and the games have to matter, and they just lost a game. I have to drop them. And
you don't, though.
And the team that just beat, especially when the team that just beat them was pretty close to them in the poll, the games have to matter. If you're not using, I'm not using this poll as a predictive tool. I'm using this as a ranking of where the teams are at this exact moment in time.
I felt like Yankton was the number 1 team going into this last week.
Yes.
And I understand the trip to Sturgis or Spearfish. It gets weird when you go out west. From talking with some of the people from Yankton when I was at Vermilion on Saturday for the USD game, they said it's as bad as Yankton's played all year. I mean, they didn't play well at all. So I had to balance that. I just think Huron overall, their overall resume to this point is very good. They've only lost 1 game. It was to Yankton. I still think Yankton's good. I have them at 3, but I have to put Sturgis ahead of them. They just beat them, and that has to matter. We talk about what's going to happen, all this sort of stuff. At some point, head-to-head has to matter. I always say that, and I feel like I had to back it up here. So Sturgis was 2. I still think Yankton's very good. They played a Harrisburg team that nobody else played, so that matters for something. And I think Pierre has had a very solid season. I agree. T is not the number 2 team in this class.
No. Sorry. So if Mitchell beat T, would Mitchell be number 2?
I had Huron, Sturgis, Yankton, Pierre, and T.
What did Landon have here?
I had Huron, Sturgis, Yankton, T, Pierre.
Yeah.
Sturgis. You think Sturgis is the second best team in this class?
Right now they are. They just beat Yankton. Yes. That has to count for something.
What did they do the week before?
They lost to Aberdeen.
Probably the worst team outside of Mitchell. So, we don't look back though. We don't look back at what you did the previous week.
I have to give them credit for beating Yankton. That's to me.
If your whole argument is that Yankton beat Huron in week 1
and Pierre, they play Pierre yet?
They played Pierre.
Yeah, it was close. They beat Huron.
Okay, Pierre's not Pierre's the 5th best team or the 4th best team, depending on how you.
Who would win between? Who do you think would win if Sturgis played Pierre?
And also Huron beat Pierre, so that's a moot point.
Yeah. They play this week. Who do you expect to win? It is at Pierre. Sturgis plays Pierre. You expect Sturgis to win that game?
What? It's at Pierre?
Yeah.
No.
I have no idea if they're going to win.
You both have them at 2.
Yeah, right now.
I just told you I don't use this as a predictive tool. I use it as a ranking of where the teams are.
Kind of the way I look at it. My number 1 team in every class. I have them at number 1 because I don't think any other team below them would beat them.
So
I don't think any other team would, if they played this week.
Okay.
I don't think anybody would beat Yankton. I think Yankton would beat Huron. They'd beat Pierre. If they played Sturgis again, you have to factor in it was a road game. It was a 6-point game. I don't think anybody would beat Sioux Falls Christian. In 11A, I don't think anybody would beat Elk Point Jefferson. And you just go down the line, I don't think anybody would beat Sully Buttes or Wall. So whoever my number 1 team is,
I understand that.
That's my philosophy for that.
Yeah, I understand.
So Yankton is there. And if you're saying Sturgis is a 2, no, I think Pierre's better than Sturgis. Thus why Pierre, I have them ahead of Sturgis.
I am a big fan of the Josh Pate College Football Show. This is clearly a case of Travis is doing a power rating. Marcus and I are ranking the teams. There's a difference. They're in a power rating. The University of Texas and Penn State are still like top 10 teams in the country because you'd favor them over basically everybody on a neutral field.
Yeah.
Are they top 10 teams in the country the way they're playing right now? No. And so that's why they would be ranked in a power rating. They would not be ranked by me and Marcus.
I guess I treat it kind of like the College Football Playoff Committee treats it. Like, what is your resume? What have you done? Who have you beaten? How good have you been so far? And I do weight a little bit more what happens in week 6 compared to week 1. And
I think you have to weight what has happened more recently heavier than what happened 6 weeks ago at this point. Travis, 100%. If I had to pick a state champion out of Class 11 AA right now, I am still picking the Yankton Bucks.
But they're not your number. They're your number.
If I have to,
because I'm not power ranking the teams. I'm rating them based on what they have done and what they have done lately. And what Yankton just did is lose to a team that we thought was worse than them. You have to reward the team for winning the game.
How far do you go down on the list? Like if Spearfish beat Yankton, do you put Spearfish at 2?
Because again, it's a resume thing.
Because it has to matter because Spearfish has losses. Great win for Sturgis, but I have to take into account that Sturgis lost the week before to the worst team I've seen so far, and that's Aberdeen. It feels like that's not taken.
And their only other loss is to Huron, the number 1 team. So yeah, they do have a bad loss.
But you look at that common opponent. Yankton beat Huron by 17. Sturgis lost to Huron also by 17 points. So I take into account Yankton and Sturgis. I hold against Sturgis the loss against Aberdeen the previous week. I hold against Sturgis the head-to-head when it comes to what Huron did against Yankton and what Huron did against Sturgis. So I compare that. If Sturgis would have won this game by like 30 points, then I'd have to maybe take into consideration, okay, but you win by 6. So I don't think people take into consideration more than 1 week, and they don't take into consideration 6 points versus, well, this team lost by 30 versus how close was the margin?
You're asking me? Or
no, I'm just saying how people should look at, because too much of it is, well, you lost. Like, again, Pierre. Why did I did not move Pierre down. They led at O'Gorman. O'Gorman wins 27-23. That was a game I thought Pierre's probably losing this by 20 points. They had a fourth quarter lead. I looked at, that's a loss. I looked at it as a positive. I think Pierre's.
Well, and that's why I had Pierre 4.
Basically,
because I give them credit for only losing to them by a touchdown. And if I'm looking for my tiebreaker between them and T, that's what I gave the edge to Pierre here. I also think, just to close the loop on Sturgis for a minute, because last week, Travis, you were talking about how you thought Watertown was the 5th best team in this class. They got beat by Spearfish.
That was kind of the test to see, okay, how are you against one of those, maybe 6?
Then I think it's fair to say Brookings is better than Watertown. Sturgis has a win over Brookings.
Probably.
The rest of their schedule is not as strong. They have a win over a winless Douglas. They have a win over a winless Stevens. That is an 11 AAA team. I give some level of credit to that because it's a AAA team. Perhaps Stevens is one of the 6 largest schools in the state. So that's kind of the other thought process. I have to think about Huron has played exceptionally good football for the last 5 weeks. They've won all these games. They, I believe, went to Sturgis and beat them, or maybe that game was in Huron. But I think Huron's the best team right now in terms of resume and what they've accomplished.
That game was in Sturgis, Huron.
Yeah, and that was close for a little while, and Huron pulled away. So I gave the credit right now to Huron. I think their resume is worth them being number 1. I am still a believer in Yankton. I think you can have one bad week. And here's the thing with 11 AA football. Everybody has a bad week at some point. That's part of the deal. I think Yankton probably had theirs. the week before, or a couple weeks before against Harrisburg. It was very close. The game they won against Pierre, 35-28, I believe. So, yeah. I mean, is Yankton as sharp as we maybe expected them to be? I don't think they are, and that maybe would portend to this being a very interesting bracket once we get to November, and I'm excited for that.
I think a comment I made last week was we don't know a whole lot about this class yet. I still believe that, and I'm going to close my book on Sturgis with basically where I landed when I was making the poll was I had Huron 1, and I knew I was going to have Huron 1, and then it was like...
Despite losing to Yankton.
In week 1. In a game that was competitive for most of the game.
As long as we're like 3-4 weeks, the games have less importance for the head-to-head. Yeah, like that's what because we don't look back more than a week.
We look back further than that.
But the Yankton win doesn't mean anything now because it wasn't.
I don't say it means nothing.
It doesn't mean enough to.
We got a little triangle here of Sturgis, Huron, and Yankton, and they've all beaten each other.
They had to be the top 3, and I decided I was putting Huron 1, and in that scenario, if I'm putting Huron 1, I can't, using the rationale that I used to make my poll, I can't put Yankton over Sturgis if Sturgis just beat them. If you're going to be right next to each other in the poll and one team has a head-to-head that just happened, I have to put the team that just won over the team that just lost.
And in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, when I send in my final poll, it's probably going to be me taking the entire season at its whole. If at that point Yankton's resume is far and clear better than Sturgis, I'll move Yankton ahead of Sturgis again. It's
not like there's a chasm between 2 and 3. It's about that much.
You were criticizing the people who only look week to week, and I feel like I don't do that. I feel like I go back and I'm looking back. So that's where the rationale is of I can't hold it only against Huron for losing to Yankton, and I will not only hold it against Yankton for losing to Sturgis in the future. But right now, that was a really good win. I got to give Sturgis the credit for that.
And for me, Sturgis was not, I guess, close enough in my rankings to, because at some point,
because where did you have Sturgis in your poll?
It's a bias thing.
I had 1. Let me remember. I had Yankton 1, Pierre 2, Huron 3, probably Sturgis 4. I probably had T at 5.
Okay,
is what I had.
It's kind of a bias going in, bias going out thing there too. I mean, we recapped that you didn't think Sturgis had any business winning this game.
Like nobody would have picked Sturgis.
Like they weren't going to be competitive. Well, they won the game. I mean, they won the game.
Like nobody would have picked Sturgis. You could ask, 50 people. Would anybody pick Sturgis?
But they beat them.
Nobody picked Buster Douglas either.
No, they didn't. And it was a close loss. I don't drop a team just because they lose, obviously, and it's very close. Mm-hmm. And I also hold it against teams if they don't win impressively. T at number 2. We haven't talked about T being at number 2. They're the only team this year when the game was done, end of regulation, they had not beaten Mitchell.
Yeah,
Mitchell's the worst team in this class outside of Douglas.
Let's point out we're holding that because we saw that.
I think we can all agree here. We disagree with the Yankton and Huron and Pierre and Sturgis. We all agree that T is not number 2.
I agree.
T is the second least impressive team I've seen up next to Aberdeen. T tied at 20 with Mitchell. T needed overtime to beat a Mitchell team that everybody blows out.
Yeah.
Even Aberdeen won comfortably, and they scored 1 offensive touchdown. So that is another situation where they do not look back at, last week T needed overtime to beat a Mitchell team that is literally...
Mitchell scored 2 defensive touchdowns, effectively.
And it's... And people just, they won. Well, you have to look at how they won. How did T win? It was in overtime. And that's my biggest issue. People don't look at how you won the game.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest. I mean, I hold that against T almost as bad as a loss.
So why are you not giving Sturgis when Sturgis was the worst team in your mind?
Yeah.
If they're
it was a close win. It was at home.
But you don't think they should have even been in the game. So them winning by any margin should be a big thing.
Because they lost to Aberdeen the week before. I've taken that into account.
But
they have probably the worst loss and the best win of all of these teams.
For Travis,
and I even it out. So I'm not putting...
Yankton's 1 and Sturgis is 4, but Sturgis is 4 and Yankton's 8. So the gap between Yankton and Sturgis and Aberdeen is the same. Yeah. So those losses are the same.
Yeah.
Yankton's loss to Sturgis in your mind is the same.
You should treat them the same. Yeah.
It kind of evens out.
I always just think like the winning has to matter. To me, winning has to matter a little bit more than losing. And I said this.
Why
last
do we
week.
play the games?
We're spending way too much time on 11AA, but it is particularly interesting.
No,
this
I mean
week.
Nothing else happened really except
that's true.
this.
But
we are talking in circles.
But do you? I mean, again,
because who would you pick to win the state title, Marcus? Out of 11,
but they're not your number one team, though.
I would probably take Huron right now, honestly, in my heart of hearts.
Why does it matter if they're the number one team or not?
It's just a debate because in 2 weeks the polls are going to be done, and we won't have a chance.
I don't treat the poll as who I'm picking to win. It's who has the best resume,
not who the best team is.
Who has the best resume?
I consider who the best team is.
I consider who the best team is.
I think I try to blend the two, and it makes it somewhat complicated from week to week. But I think as it relates to T, it hurts T that the three people in this room paid a lot of attention. Nobody else noticed that it was they just saw 26-20 was a close game. T did not play that well against Mitchell. And so that makes me think like they're probably not as good as the other teams in this class.
But they're it's like, oof.
I think people just see 5-1.
That's all they say. And that's a problem.
Yeah. But
because they beat Spearfish 22-14.
Yeah.
You look at I grade these wins. It's like, well, that was not a very impressive win. T only beat Douglas 38-6. They only won by 32 points. Yeah. So like, you know what? Mitchell won by
they only won by 4 scores. Dang.
Well, we get mad though when
Mitchell won by 60. So
people get mad when you point up.
Maybe T didn't play any of their starters like most of the game, and T has proved like they don't. T's a team that if you look at their results, they don't care if they win by 1 or they win by 100. They're just going to go out there and do what they do.
Well, and why are we putting weight on the Douglas? We shouldn't be putting the weight on the Douglas anyway. If everybody's going to beat him, it shouldn't matter that much. And so I think it's important to pay attention. It's important to see how teams win. But margin of victory, nobody ever wants to acknowledge margin of victory.
Yeah.
Some of these places will observe it. Maybe the Massey ratings, I think they do take it into account, but seed points don't. I guess it's up to each individual voter if they want to put it in there. I'm not looking at a certain point. Once you get past like 20 points, I'm not really paying attention to how much you beat them by because it doesn't matter as much. I do think if the game went to overtime, if you win by a single score, if it was a really close game, I am going to pay a little bit more attention to that. But from what I was told, Yankton did not play very well against Sturgis, and that was part of what I took into account as well.
But what does that say that they played their worst game of the year? They lose by 6. They didn't lose by 20. They played very.
They lost to a team you didn't think was going to be on the same field as them.
No, and they almost won. So Huron at number 1, and then Huron's got a good shot to be that 1 seed here with 3 weeks to go.
They should have blown out. They almost beat a team that they should have blown out in Travis Kriens' mind.
Like nobody.
And that's why they're number 1.
Nobody pays attention to that though. And Yankton beat Huron.
I don't think he realized
you're in the minority on that.
I am in the minority. I say, everybody votes differently. No, they don't. Everybody votes the same. Win or loss. That's the only thing that matters, win or loss.
We're proof that that's not true. I mean, I think there's a little bit more nuance going into it. I think this is why you have a poll. And, if everybody voted the same, we wouldn't have a poll. It'd just be one person.
Well, everybody did vote the same. I mean, it was 90% Huron.
I guess we're having this discussion because you don't.
Because I don't. If this was anybody else, it'd be like, Huron's number 1. So
I don't get to see every ballot, so I don't know how they all justified it. We're making the case about why, Sturgis and Huron are valid to have ahead of them.
Yes, we have not asked this question of Travis yet. Who is playing the best football in 11 AA through this last week? Like right now.
I think
Snapshot
Pierre.
in time.
I think Pierre.
Well, then why isn't Pierre number 1 in your poll?
Because they lost to Yankton. And that game would be...
And who did Yankton just lose? Wait, who did Yankton just lose to?
A team that lost to Aberdeen the week before.
Oh, but it was the week before. Oh.
See, we don't take into account. It should be either the record by the team should be either 1-0 or 0-1.
No.
It shouldn't be 5-0. It shouldn't be 3-3. It should, because Landon doesn't want to take into account the Aberdeen loss to Sturgis the week before.
I just told you why I put Sturgis over Yankton. I was going to have them 2-3 in some order.
Because they beat them.
More recently. I think recently.
Okay, how about this? And I've mentioned this. We haven't. If Mitchell would have beat T, would you have ranked Mitchell ahead of T?
No, because Mitchell's resume is not comparable.
And that's what I think. I don't think
Yankton's resume is comparable.
Sturgis's resume is not comparable to Yankton.
They are both 4-2.
No.
Yeah, I consider Yankton 4-1 for the record.
Yeah, take away the Harrisburg loss. I don't think Sturgis's resume
where
is
I
better
go back
Yankton.
to they have the win over Brookings. That's
not good. No.
But they played an East River team. We can't sit here and rip. We can't rip Sturgis for never playing anybody.
Maybe it's a great win for them.
They just beat Brookings and they beat Yankton, and I got to give them credit for that. It sounded like they were close with Huron, but it ended up being a 2-3 score game, whatever it ended up being. And the same thing could be said about the Huron-Yankton game in week 1. That it was close. It was close. It was 21-20, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and then they pulled away. So
I do like Yankton's win versus Pierre, and I do like Yankton's win versus Huron. They're the only team to beat Huron. So I think that outweighs a 6-point loss. Good discussion.
We're going to find out on Friday night because Pierre and Sturgis will get on the same field and they'll settle some stuff. And I agree with you. I think, are the odds good that Pierre's going to beat him? Yeah. But right in this moment in time, I give Sturgis the credit for beating a team I thought was pretty good in Yankton.
Good for them. Huron, number 1. They play Aberdeen. Good chance Huron wins that. Number 2, T, hosting Watertown. That's at T. Then you've got number 3, Sturgis at number 5, Pierre. Yankton hosting Brookings, and then Douglas hosting Spearfish Mitchell at Brandon Valley. So
you know what we call that? Around the ESD right there.
That's around the ESD.
I know it's not the full thing, but that was it right there.
I think in my poll, in the state poll, it's 3 Sturgis at 5 Pierre.
Yeah.
I think in my poll, it's number 2 Pierre hosting number 4 Sturgis.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to move Sturgis down if they lose that game. If they lose, I'll keep them at 4 because I expect them to lose. They lose to Pierre.
You didn't move them up after they beat your number 1 team?
I think I moved them ahead of T. I think I moved them up on the spot.
I would hope so.
I moved them ahead of T because, T unimpressive against Mitchell. So I take into account how you win and how you lose. I think most people just say, "Oh, you won. Let's move on."
I've said this before, and I know that it might be kind of boring, but Landon and I, we always talk about our ideas for the Gridiron Report because we need ideas. But I've always felt like we should do a power ranking of all the 11-man teams, and it's just like, here's my top 25. Where would I put these teams if I had to put them with the 11 AAA teams?
Are we power ranking them or are we rating them?
I would say we're
Are we rating them or are we ranking them?
I guess we're ranking them.
So AAA would take up like your first 4 or 5 spots. Then you might have a Yankton or a Pierre or Huron.
Yeah.
Huron might be the 6th, 7th best team.
I just think it would be an interesting way to look at it aside from, how we think about this pile of teams sometimes.
Sioux Falls Christian probably a top 10
How high
team.
up do you put them? How high up do you put Elk Point Jefferson? I think it'd be at least food for thought.
End of the regular season, do that.
Yeah. And I wish I was better with numbers. I'm only kind of okay with numbers, and I wish I could put together my own,
You're better at prime numbers than anything else.
Yeah,
I've noticed that.
The least I can do. So
good discussion, folks.
And I think it's especially applicable in 9-man football where there's a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
Things are a little bit more even.
That's why I've always been interested in doing that for the 9-man.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crossover anyway, so we have plenty of data points.
I think maybe we should do that next year. Or
Boom.
Rank the top 10 9-man.
I'm going to do it in the break here, 90 seconds. Good discussion. Landon, Marcus,
Yes,
and
sir.
Travis. We have Mitchell football coming up here 6 o'clock at Brandon Valley. We'll talk some 9-man football. Coming up next, it's the KORNer booth brought to you by Jimmy John's, James Valley Landscape Solutions, and Marlins of Mitchell.
Feeling hungry but not sure what for? The buffet at Marlin's is the perfect choice. So many mouth-watering options, everyone will find something they crave, and no one leaves hungry. Marlin's offers a breakfast buffet on Saturdays and Sundays, 7 to 2, a lunch buffet Monday through Fridays from 11 to 2, then a dinner buffet Friday and Saturday from 5 to 9. And don't forget, kids eat free on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's Marlin Family Restaurant in Mitchell.
At Jimmy John's, we don't make sandwiches. We make the sandwich of sandwiches. We use fresh veggies because we don't hate salads. We just feel bad for them. We make our sandwiches exactly how you want because you're the one who's eating it. And we bake bread all day, every day because stale bread isn't bread. It's croutons. Sandwich history is written by the victors. Good thing we have legible handwriting. Jimmy John's, the sandwich of sandwiches. Order pickup or delivery on the app.
Fall isn't the end of the growing season. It's the beginning of next year's beautiful landscape. At James Valley Garden Center, they make fall planting easy. Trees, shrubs, perennials. They all take root better in cool weather, and their team is ready to help you with expert advice. James Valley Garden Center is your local trusted partner for all things outdoors, season after season. James Valley Garden Center at 600 West Spruce. Let's go outside.
KORNer booth pregame show continues. Lively discussion. Marcus, Landon, and Travis. Again, being brought to you by Jimmy John's, Marlins, James Valley Landscape Solutions. You can always listen back to the show on Spotify and also Apple iTunes. It's the KORNer booth KORNer, corner booth. Take a look at 9-man football from last week. Again, another close what if, what could have happened for Hanson. Another close loss for the Beavers. 12-7, Hanson loses to Howard. So, again, nice showing for Hanson. You were there. Again, Hanson's lost a close one to Hamlin, another team that I still have Hanson think at number 5.
I do too.
Hey, look at us. And Hill City. We agree on Hill City. Hill City loses. Don't let your friends vote for Hill City. But again, defensive battle. One big play decided this. 12-7. Howard beats Hanson in a slugfest.
Yeah, early on in this game, there was a lot of driving in like the middle third of the field and not a whole lot else. There was a long punt return by Colt Becker for Howard, and then there was one pretty solid drive there by the Beavers, and that's how we arrived at 7-6 at halftime, and it was 7-6 for a long time. I think 7-6 happened pretty early in the second quarter, if I recall, and then it was 7-6 for a long time before Howard scored late and put it away.
Howard at number 4. They're at Garrettson this week. Platte Geddes, they finally lose, so we thought that was a possibility as they play up versus Parkson. This was a show me something for Platte Geddes to where it's a AA team. You're not going to see Parkson in the playoffs, but the Trojans win 28-0. So a good shutout win there for the Trojans.
I was impressed that Platte Geddes kept it to 28,
right.
Considering that Parkson scored 70 on Bonholm the week before. Right now, the way Parkson's playing offensively is particularly impressive. So glad that I think it bodes well for Platte Geddes going forward. We'll talk about them here in a moment. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just, I think Parkson's been sharp.
They have been. Freeman rolls again, 43-8 over Centerville. But next week we have that crossover with the two conferences in 9-man football, and it looks like we're going to get Avon versus Freeman, Marion Freeman Academy, a B versus AA matchup to wrap up the regular season, and both teams, at least this week, undefeated.
Yeah, this is the Great Plains Conference, and they have 2 divisions, and they have 11 teams. Platte Geddes is not part of this conference, but they're in this little crossover to give them an even number of teams. And so Freeman, Marion, Freeman Academy, Alcester, Hudson, and Platte Geddes all have to be at home. They have home games because their side of the conference is home. Avon, Scotland Menno, and Corsica Stickney are going to be road teams. So that means, based on both the record and seed points, it sure looks like we're going to see Avon at Freeman, Marion, Freeman Academy. We're going to see, I think, Scotland Menno at Alcester Hudson, which is Scotland Menno's 4-2, Alcester Hudson's 5-1, and we will see Corsica Stickney at Platte Geddes. Platte Geddes 6-1 and Corsica Stickney 4-2. So those are kind of the major matchups. That looks to be how things are going to line up, and they will decide that after this week. So there could maybe be a variation of that, but that's kind of what we're looking at it. It's a cool concept, but it's better when you see kind of what we might be getting. I think it helps us visualize. And obviously there will be playoff implications there, because if Platte Geddes gets a win this week and next week, they're 8-1 in that 9A division. That could be pretty important.
That's really tough if we do get Freeman, Marion, Freeman Academy against Avon. Presumably that's 7-0 versus 7-0.
Yeah.
That's pretty tough for the loser, because that's probably going to cost somebody a number 1 seed.
Maybe not Freeman, because they're
up a lot.
They're almost 3 whole points ahead of Parkston, who is 2.
Yeah.
Parkston is at 2 right now.
Freeman's schedule has been pretty nasty, and they've rolled through it. We've kind of taken it for granted.
You would say, Freeman a favorite in that game, AA versus B.
Pretty considerably.
Avon right now, they're a point ahead of Sully Buttes for that 3 seed, so that could be the difference between Avon being at home versus maybe being a 3 seed down the road in a potential semifinal. So a lot riding on that game, I think, especially for Avon. If they can get to a semifinal, are you playing at home or are you playing it on the road? So, yeah, big matchups, final 2 weeks for 9-man football.
For what it's worth, Phoenix over Avon 36-26 looks like a year ago.
Yeah. I was going to say, they played in this same week last year.
And then 2 years ago, pretty decisively, Phoenix 52-18.
I was there, and it was a blowout.
And you'd say Freeman's better this year.
Yeah.
Than they have in the last 2 years. So.
Yeah.
And then this was a very interesting matchup for 11B playoffs. McCook Central Montrose defeating Bridgewater Emory Ethan 35-18, and that may leave Bridgewater Emory here out of the playoffs. They're the 18 seed right now with number 1 Sioux Falls Christian of 11AA. So, yeah, tough schedule for the Seahawks, but they're on the outside looking in right now.
And they have 2 1-point losses this season, including one to what might be a top 2 team in the Bucks. We've talked about that matchup. At the very worst, they need to beat Parker at home in the final week of the season to give themselves a chance, potentially be 3-5 at that point. Parker, one of the teams that Landon wrote about this week in the Gridiron Report about big turnaround season from them. Same could be said for Chamberlain. They are pretty safely in the playoffs at this point, 4-3. So one of the other notable storylines here in this class.
9AA, Freeman knocked off the previous number 4 team, Hill City, 44-43. You and me, Marcus, were shaky about Hill City.
Phillip beat Hill
What'd I
City.
say?
Yeah, Freeman.
Phillip.
That has happened. That happened, what was it, last year, 2 years ago?
Yeah, so Phillip with a 1-point win over Hill City. And then Winter loses again. Mount Vernon Plankington, 14-6. I said this is a decade worth of losses for Winter. I'm 4 losses, maybe a 5th. I'm sure it's pretty close, but
your state champion last year, Winter, was 12-0. They're 3-4. And your state runner-up was Sioux Valley. They were 11-1. They're 3-3. So I can't remember that happening.
No, both of them falling off like that. Winter at 3-4 here, currently the 12 seed. Wagner with a second. This is really their first blowout loss after losing a close one to Woonsocket the previous week. Low-scoring game. Number 1 Elk Point Jefferson just rolls Wagner 48-0. So they're knocked out of the top 5, but Wagner's still in that 4 spot for seed points. So that's not going to cost them much, losing to an undefeated number 1 EPJ team. So Wagner here at 5-2, just kind of licking their wounds and trying to see where they're at here with the playoffs. And another big game from last week was Clark Willow Lake getting that win versus Dual. Those teams up north, teams kind of off of the radar. Close game, Clark Willow Lake with that victory. I think I have them 5th. I've had them 5th for a couple weeks in 11B. And again, Mobridge Pollock, I don't have them ranked. They beat Deadwood by 3. That's another. No, you didn't perform as well as I thought.
And we're getting those matchups now. Mobridge Pollock, Clark Willow Lake this week. Mobridge Pollock Dual next week. So we will learn more about Mobridge Pollock this week. You mentioned Wagner. I think it's important. They're on a bye week this week. Then they play Miller Highmore Herald to end the season.
Get back on track.
And right now, potentially in line for a quarterfinal rematch against the Bucks in the postseason. So that's potentially. I know they took 2 tough losses here, but that potentially could be a fortuitous path for them going forward.
Corner Booth pregame show here at KORN News Radio. Parkston plays Thursday nights. Wolsey Wessington, that game in Huron. So Parkston on the road for Thursday. Anything else that you're looking forward to, whether it's 9-man, whether it's 11B? Looking forward to seeing if Scotland Menno can score some points. At home, they take on Avon. Can Scotland Menno, can that offense keep that one somewhat closer? Does Avon roll yet again? A lot of area teams here on the road this week.
I've not had a chance to see Corsica Stickney yet. I think that's where I'm going to be for a little while on Friday, so interested to see what the Jaguars have. And Platte Geddes Bonholm, that matchup is this week. Landon's nodding his head. I'll let him talk about it, but that's a very good matchup one more time here in 9AA.
Yeah, I think that one's pretty big for seed point implications for both teams because Bonholm has quietly kind of been in that top 8. They've threatened for top 5 at different points in time this whole season. I believe they are the top 2-loss team in 9AA in terms of seed points right now. And so if they could win, they don't have a game next week. They're one of those teams that has the bye right before the playoffs. That could be kind of nice for them if you're ending 6-2 with a bye right before the postseason. Conversely, for the Black Panthers, we just talked about it. They play this 9-game schedule. It's not easy. I mean, they're finishing with Parkston last week, Bonholm, and then
crossover game.
They'll have that crossover game against some sort of good team because it'll be toward the top of the Great Plains Conference, the opponent that they're getting. So just really, really tough gauntlet here for the Black Panthers before they head to the postseason.
And circling back to, you mentioned Hanson at the beginning, they've got a very important game at Viborg Hurley this week. Viborg Hurley's in a big multi-car group of teams that's tied. It's like Scotland Menno, Gregory, they're all kind of together, and Hanson's right behind them. So if Hanson can get one more win, either join that big grouping or get ahead of it, that could be pretty important. And I think, I don't remember who Hanson plays next week, but they've got one more really interesting opponent here. They've had 4 in a row here to end the season. It's Canastota, which I'm guessing they should win that game. But it'd be big for Hanson here now, considering how difficult their schedule has been. If they can get 2 wins and get to 5-3, that would be a big climb, I think, for them.
I don't think anyone wants to play Hanson.
No.
You look at this. I mean, we've talked about it throughout the year, but their 3 losses 6 points, 10 points, and 5 points. I mean, they're about as close to 6-0 as you could be for a 3-3 team.
And put names on those teams: Hamlin, Parkston, Howard. Pretty good. So
Hanson's the 12 seed. Might they got an outside shot of getting an 8. Scotland Meadows in that 8 spot. You know,
Who's the
Scotland
current
Meadow
number
loss.
Wow, that would be meaty. A Hanson, Elkton, Lake Benton.
First round matchup.
First round pairing, if it were to start today, that'd be
I want Hanson Hill City.
wild.
Hanson's the 12, Hill City's the 4.
yeah,
Can we make it happen? So,
What a clash of styles that would be. A team that wants to score 50 points against a team that is content scoring 12.
and doesn't let teams score 50 generally. So,
Generally.
top 5 matchups this week. 11B, number 4, Mobridge Pollock at Clark Willow Lake. 11A, Madison's at Lennox. See if Lennox can maybe get back on track here. Sturgis at Pier. We talked about that. And then number 3, Harrisburg at number 5, Sioux Falls Jefferson in 11 AAA. So again, the bottom half of the top 5. Seeing how things do this week in 11-man football. I guess SDSU slow start. They survived Youngstown State 35-30. The Hobo Day this week against Northern Iowa, but waiting for SDSU to kind of show up, and it took them maybe a quarter or a half to show up there on Saturday.
Well, I talked last week about how their running game had been kind of waiting to see it explode, and then in the third quarter it kind of blew up, and they had 4 second-half touchdowns from Julius Loffridge, so that was good to see them run the ball when they absolutely needed to. Chase Mason, pretty solid. He had the turnover streak ended, but I think Youngstown State might be pretty good, and we saw Youngstown, challenge SDSU. We saw Illinois State at least hang around with NDSU. So both of those top 2 teams got at least somewhat of a challenge on the road last week.
I thought it was very telling. Early in the year, I thought a major takeaway that I was hearing was, wow, these SDSU linebackers are really fast, like sideline to sideline. Well, I think it tells you something when Bo Brungard, the quarterback for Youngstown State, he's running all over the field, and he's making those linebackers look a step slow. That dude is probably an underrated talent. He went for over 400 total yards, and he kind of is that offense. He's going to be in the mix for first team All Valley, I'd have to think.
The Raiders just drafted Tommy Millott and Cam Miller. Are they interested in a Bo Brungard? Because that'd be kind of the same style.
Can't be worse than Geno Smith right now.
That's true.
Sorry, Geno.
Quarterback, turn linebacker, turn quarterback.
Turn tight end.
Turn tight end.
Yep.
SDSU, Northern Iowa this week. Unfortunately, USD doesn't play Youngstown State.
Yeah.
Youngstown's better than USD despite the polls. LJ Phillips Jr., this guy.
He loves to run at the Dakota Dome.
This guy, 244 yards, 4 touchdowns last week for USD's homecoming. They beat Murray State 49-24. They had Charles Pierre, and it doesn't really seem to matter.
It's wild to me.
Doesn't matter
that they lost an All-American running back, and that's not the story.
And Keandre Jones-Logan's hurt too.
Yeah.
So they lost 2 really good running backs, 2 of their 3 running backs from last year, and the third one graduated, and it doesn't matter.
It don't matter.
He is...
And they were going to only probably give this guy 8 carries a game.
Yeah.
How are you... This guy that's running for 220 yards a game, you were only going to give him 8 carries a game?
Well, they had a couple other pretty notable transfers come in, and that's not LJ Phillips. LJ Phillips was there previously, so he is a tough runner. He's like Julius Loffridge. They're kind of both the same. Neither one is going to be big on necessarily hitting the 60-yarder, although LJ Phillips has done that this season. But yeah, at the Dakota Dome, in the 3 games they've had there, he's ran for 700 yards. It's insane. And I think 10 touchdowns. So what can you say? Really good.
He's great.
He's great.
That's what I say.
And I will say, they are putting a lot of workload on him. And I asked Travis Johansson after the game, how are you going to balance that going forward? And he's like, we need to bring some of these other running backs along because 30 carries a game isn't going to work for the whole rest of the season. He's going to get beat up. So, and they need, passing game was better, but they need that to continue to evolve because they need to be balanced or they're going to struggle.
Maybe because there's 80, 100 guys on a football team. But I think football, more than any other sport, there's guys that maybe just never get a chance to play that we'll never know how good they were.
Yeah. Our colleague Trey Houchen had this story about Matt Walsh, this guy who was a walk-on linebacker for USD, was behind their really good linebackers last year, basically only got to play special teams. This year he's out there, he's leading them in tackles and all kinds of stats. And it's just I wouldn't have known this guy even was on the team.
Yeah. Again, KORNer Booth, you can check it out on Spotify and on iTunes. I don't know The last time I did a Saturday Mitchell volleyball game was probably the state tournament, 2017. Last time they make it. I think I've done a Saturday volleyball game since then. I'm going to do one this Saturday. Mitchell hosting a 20-win Rapid City Stevens team already. Mitchell, they're 9-4. They won 3 in a row last week, a 3 in 1 week, and Mitchell all of a sudden gets up to that 7 seed as we get a more clear picture here of what AA volleyball looks like. And Mitchell, as we've said, going to be in a fight to get a home match for that Sodak 16, but chance to play Rapid City Central Friday. It's kind of you got to win that one because Stevens going to be tough on Saturday.
If you somehow get the win over Stevens, that could be huge for being at home in the Sodak 16. So I'm a little disappointed I'm going to miss it because it's maybe the biggest Saturday afternoon volleyball game there's been in a long time. There was a long time ago, Mitchell, I think, maybe hosted Harrisburg in a Colonel Bowl when Mitchell was still really good, and Harrisburg wasn't as good as they are now. But I can't think of a Saturday match quite this big at home.
Yeah, so there you go, Wayne. And thoughts, baseball, Milwaukee Brewers could not close out. We've had Toronto. They're the first team in the ALCS. I think playoffs, people have enjoyed it so far. It goes by quickly, and I think baseball playoffs have been very entertaining.
I'm not going to do my impression, but what I enjoyed greatly was Poppy and Vladdy Jr. Dunking on the Yankees.
The Yankees lose. They lose. Fantastic. Confidence, Game 4, as we speak, hours away between Milwaukee and the Cubs.
Well, any game that Freddie Peralta starts, I like, and it sounds like that might be the direction that the Brewers are going tonight. But if there's a world in which they lose with Freddie Peralta on the mound tonight, it makes me very, very skeptical about a potential Game 5.
That was according to MLB.com. Don't blame me if he doesn't end up starting. But the good thing is if he doesn't start, he'll go in Game 5.
That is true.
So,
but that would make me, if it does go to a Game 5 and Freddie Peralta's on the mound, my nerves will be calmed a little. They'll be as calm as they possibly could be for a Game 5 scenario.
I think Milwaukee's roster is better. Their lineup's better. It's just a matter of them coming through and getting it done. And
I'll say I had a lot of fun in the first 2 games where both times the Cubs hit pretty big home runs in the first inning, including a 3-run home run by Seiya Suzuki in Game 2, and both times they didn't even get out of the first inning with the lead because the Brewers responded so strongly. So had a lot of fun the first 2 games, but as it is just being a fan in a best of 5 set, that one win that the Cubs got in Game 3 just feels like the tide might be turning.
It kept him in it, and that's in a 5-game series. That ends up being a big deal. Travis, this has been a big playoff so far for the former Twins pitchers, the bullpen people.
My former classmates.
Yes, that's true.
Caleb Thielbar, Blake
true.
Trinan.
Yeah.
Lou Varlin, not a classmate.
Thielbar has done what he's needed to do for the Cubs. He's been a big addition for them. Duran not pitching as much, or when he has, it's been when they're losing. So that's been incredible. Varland, as you said, got rocked.
Good last night.
Yeah, Game 3 was tough, but
he made it through.
Blue Jays are moving on. I didn't realize he was wearing number 77. Don't like the vibes of that.
Act like you're not a spring training non-roster invitee.
That's exactly
here in
right.
the middle of October. Act like you belong, Lou.
Yeah.
Cripes. Popkins. Stupid Popkins.
Last week's coming back.
Going to the World Series. At least in the American League, we're down to Seattle, who's never been to the World Series. Yep. Detroit hasn't been there in a good 10, 12 years. And Toronto hasn't been there since 93.
I was going to say
93.
So you were barely born. Not quite yet.
There's some Twins vibes with the Mariners because they had waited a long time since they had won a playoff game. George Polanco was really good in the series so far, but they had a super long drought in winning a playoff game as well. So the Twins kind of have some brethren there.
Just kind of waiting for Seattle to blow it. You're like, okay, like the odds said they were the favorite. The projections say, they got a 40% shot to make it out of the American League. And I'm like, really?
Yeah. The other fun storyline that I've enjoyed was last week when we were in the wild card round and it was Cleveland against Detroit. Detroit people were dunking on Cleveland saying, how can you not fill this stadium? You're playing during the day. Then they host Game 3 at 3 o'clock on a Wednesday. And the upper decks, there's plenty of seats in the upper deck. And so some Cleveland people got back at Detroit, rightfully so, because it's harder than you think to get to a daytime playoff game.
Now, I realize that the Mariners beat the Tigers with Skubal on the mound in Game 2.
Yep.
But how
because of Polanco, we should say the Polanco, the Scooble stopper, as I dubbed him.
Luis Castillo pitched well for Seattle.
How would you feel if you're Seattle and you've had like this magical run, and now you have to go through maybe the best pitcher on earth in Game 5?
Or how do you feel if you're Detroit and your guy goes twice and you lose both games?
Yeah, that would be tough.
That'd be tough. It's like we couldn't have set it up any better. Game 5, we've got our guy. Detroit just kind of getting by here.
I'm guessing if you're Toronto, you like that Scooble's going to have to go twice if the Tigers are going to advance. So.
Yeah, Blue Jays seem like you like the Blue Jays to get to the World Series.
They're
They're playing so well right now. And
the bats.
The lineup, yeah.
They were the top seed for a reason. I mean, they are dang good.
In that division with the Red Sox and the Yankees, for them to be the division champs. And
they were tied with the Yankees. I mean, it was
close. It was close.
It was a tiebreaker, and they owned the Yankees this year.
Yeah.
With 12-4, 12-5, 13-5, whatever it was, they dominated the Yankees. So yeah, baseball playoffs have been exciting. Marcus, where are you guys going to be at this week? I'll be over in Brandon. We do like the 6:00 start. I guess I'll leave my Aberdeen rant for later. I was going to talk about how terrible the trip to Aberdeen was.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that at some point.
We'll do that later.
Yeah. We're just kind of dividing and conquer. Landon's nice enough to let me leave my desk this weekend, so this on Friday, so I'm gonna go to the Corsica Stickney Burke game for a little while. Landon's gonna keep track of Mitchell, and Trey is going to be Chamberlain against Woonsocket. Yes, Woonsocket Western Springs. That game in Chamberlain. Chamberlain, an upstart team, so I'm interested to see what they can make happen. They're not the biggest scoring team, but good defense. That could be a low-scoring
Neither
game.
one of those.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Those are the two lowest scoring, total teams.
Take the under.
Take the under.
That's right. Bet on high school sports, folks, if you can, right there. Again, season finales next week. 9-man and 11B is just 1 week to go here to maybe help or hurt your playoff positions. Again, MitchellRepublic.com. It's Marcus Traxler and Landon Dierks. I'm Travis Kriens. This has been a very lively edition of the Corner Booth pregame show.